Hello and welcome to the Everyday Spirituality Podcast. With me, I'm your host, Jim Hazelwood. Many of you who have been following this podcast will recognize that things have changed from the Bishop on a Bike podcast. Same channel, but different program. So I'm making the shift to emphasize this particular topic for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I've become really passionate about everyday spirituality because the more I talk with people about it, people are just resonating with it. So in the next couple of episodes, I'm going to read to you some of the stories that people have written to me. But in this episode, this first episode of this new iteration of the podcast, is an audio recording of Chapter 12 of my upcoming book, Everyday Spirituality, which will be released in August 2019. This is Chapter 12. An audio version of the book will be released, and I thought I'd experiment with this first. And here's what I discovered. Wow, doing an audiobook is a lot harder than I thought. I want to thank the Mission Investment Fund for their support of this podcast. They continue to do that. They pay for all the back-end stuff, the microphones, the website, the emails, all of those kind of fees that we have related to putting on a podcast. I do this because I love it, and I'm committed to getting the word out about everyday spirituality. So, I hope you enjoy this reading of Chapter 12 from the upcoming book. Chapter 12. Question. These days we see bumper stickers announcing a driver's political preferences, favorite sports team, or life philosophy. In the 1960s, one common bumper sticker read, "Question authority." With this rallying cry, a younger generation announced their suspicion of older generations' decision-making. Today, that younger generation is the old guard, and they find themselves questioned by a new generation. Life comes full circle. Questions are healthy, meaningful ways for human beings to learn, grow, and challenge one another. Questions are also among the greatest assets in our efforts to rediscover everyday spirituality. What form of communication did Jesus use more than any other? You might be tempted to say parables or stories. You might be right in many ways, since that was such a dominant form of communication for him, and the parables are so vividly memorable. Most scholars count 41 parables in the Gospels, and then they debate whether some of John's Gospel stories are allegories or parables. We'll let the accountants keep a running tab while we merely appreciate the artistic storytelling gifts of Jesus. Jesus' most common form of communication is the question. He asks 307 questions in the New Testament. The crowds get to contribute as well, asking 183 questions. But he directly answers only 3 of them. Martin Copenhaver is right to name his book Jesus is the Question, a noted contrast to the bumper sticker theology, Jesus is the answer. Here's a quick sample. Where is your faith? What is your name? Who touched me? What is written in the law? How do you read it? Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? Did not the one who made the outside make the inside also? Who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? Are you so dull? Why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember? Why are you so afraid? Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? Do you believe that I am able to do this? What did you go out into the desert to see? To what can I compare this generation? If any of you has a sheep, and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? Why did you doubt? Is it possible that we find God when we are asking questions? In my mind, the answer is a resounding yes. We see God in all the questions we ask, whether or not they are religious. The simple act of asking questions indicates that we are meaning-seeking creatures. Of all the unique characteristics among the mammals that walk or swim on this earth, we humans are the ones that ask, what does this mean? We ask it in many and various ways. We inquire of the meaning of life, the purpose of work and relationships. We even ask it of our very own existence. The answers often come not in clear proclamations of certainty, but in stories, tales, and the myths of life. This human propensity for questioning begins at an early age, as if built into our DNA. One of the joys of becoming a grandparent is engaging in a long, rambling conversation initiated by a straightforward question. Here's an example from an exchange I had with my, at the time, 3-year-old grandson. Grandparent: Okay, let's get our shoes on so we can go walk to the park. Grandson: How come we have to wear shoes? Grandparent: Well, because it's a little cold out and our feet would get cold. Why would our feet get cold? Well, without any covering, the skin would get exposed to the cold and there wouldn't be enough blood circulating to keep our feet warm. Why do we have blood? I don't know. I guess it's the best way to circulate nutrients, including oxygen, around our body and to our brain. Where does our blood go when it's finished? Well, it just keeps circulating. It gets renewed when it goes through our lungs and heart. Long pause. Meanwhile, the grandparent is trying to get the shoes on the child. I know someone at school who doesn't have a heart. Really? How do you know this? I heard 2 teachers talking. One of them said they knew a person who was so cold he had no heart. After a bit of laughter, the grandparent introduces a new topic. Okay, let's go to the park before we get hungry for lunch. Why do we get hungry? If you spent any time with very young children, and sometimes not so young children, you will recognize this conversation. There are many versions of it. What's going on here? It's an exploration of life. It's the mind exploring, challenging, and discovering. Language is being examined. Concepts and ideas are being entertained. The magical muscle of curiosity is being exercised. I intentionally include a story void of any religious discussion because I want us to see the process of asking questions as a profoundly spiritual task. You don't need God named for this to be a spiritual engagement. Introduce the topic of God or Jesus or Buddha to the above dialogue with a child and we are off to the races. The why questions will abound until one of you are exhausted. And I'm putting my money on the 3-year-old to outlast you. Is the process of asking questions a spiritual activity? Once again, yes. Yes, because inquiry, wonder, and discovery are things that the human mind loves. When we ask questions, we are engaging in prayer. The Montessori-influenced educational program, Godly Play, is such a gift, and not just to children, but also to adults. The form of teaching centers around the telling of a story, typically a biblical story, and the asking of a question. What do you wonder about in this story? Variations on that question use the word wonder as central to all the discovery. In the logo of the Godly Play Foundation, the words, "I wonder," are centrally placed. I think the whole curriculum can be boiled down to the question, what do you wonder about in this story? That's not just a question for children. Many a preacher would be well served by asking this question as he or she prepares a sermon. Maybe it's even worth asking overtly during the worship service. As we are about to recite the Apostles' Creed, what do you wonder about in these words? We've just heard a reading from the Psalms. Do any of you wonder about what we just heard? This hymn has a rich history in the church, but I wonder about some of these lines we are about to sing. Is that true for you? What do you wonder about? It may even be possible to bring together a meaningful group discussion around a straightforward question. Complete this sentence. I wonder. Pass around small index cards with this phrase printed on the cards and let people complete the sentence. I'll venture a guess that you'd end up with a curriculum for a lifetime. I have a few questions. I wonder if God does have a plan for everything. I wonder if God created everything, even evil. I wonder about the very nature of God. I wonder if you are still reading this chapter. Wondering is about modeling and supporting a wondering habit, as opposed to, what is your answer? Asking questions is very much a part of the whole trajectory of religion and spirituality. The Jewish Midrash was an ancient method of exploring the scriptures initiated by rabbis. It was a sort of theological storytelling jam session of questions, discussion, and playful jousting. Much of Zen Buddhism has the koan, a kind of story that is often a question in and of itself. The well-known question, what is the sound of one hand clapping, is an excellent example. Then there's Jesus and his 307 questions. As you wander through your life, your work, and your play, you are asking questions. This simple act is the practice of everyday spirituality. These questions may concern somewhat trivial tasks, such as, what will I have for dinner? Or, what's the best road to take to my destination? But every one of us asks more profound questions, such as, what is my purpose in life? Or, where is God in all this? The wondering is a spiritual practice. The very act of asking questions engages the heart, mind, and soul. You are far more spiritual than you realize. As I complete this chapter in a small coffee shop, the young woman next to me is speaking into her phone. Siri, what's the best graduate school for me? Because of her headphones, I cannot hear Siri's answer. But her question contains so much. Anticipation of the future, seeking guidance, wonder about one's life purpose, and a desire for clarity, maybe even a desire for a companion. These are the discoveries that lie before us when we ask questions. Mature faith is rooted in questions every day.